In a quiet Texas neighborhood, where police sirens typically brought comfort rather than concern, Officer David Ramirez's badge represented protection and service. His fellow officers knew him as dedicated, his neighbors saw him as trustworthy, and his community regarded him as exemplary. But within the walls of the Ramirez home, that badge cast a different shadow. Today, we explore how a mother's desperate act to protect her special needs daughter revealed the hidden truth behind a police officer's carefully maintained image. This isn't just another headline. It's a story that challenges everything we think we know about those sworn to protect us. Take a moment right now to like this video and hit subscribe. More importantly, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. The notification bell ensures you won't miss our investigative reports that shed light on stories that deserve attention. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered how many families suffer in silence, especially when the person causing harm wears a badge? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help others feel less alone. Maria Ramirez never imagined she would become the center of a story that would shake the foundations of her Texas community. As the wife of a respected police officer and mother to a special needs daughter, her life seemed to follow a predictable path. But on that fateful night when she discovered the truth about her husband's actions, everything changed. This investigation reveals patterns of behavior that often go unnoticed, warning signs that get dismissed, and the complicated reality of domestic violence within law enforcement families. We'll examine how Maria's choice to protect her daughter led to consequences that would forever alter their lives. Remember, recognizing the signs of abuse could save someone's life. Sometimes the most dangerous place isn't the streets, it's behind closed doors, even in homes we least expect. If you know someone who might benefit from this information, now is the time to share this video. Your simple act of sharing could be the lifeline someone desperately needs. Let's begin by understanding how this story unfolded, through the eyes of those who lived it. Officer David Ramirez stood out among his peers at the local police department. His commanding presence and unwavering dedication to duty earned him commendations and respect. Each morning, as he pinned on his badge and adjusted his uniform, neighbors would wave as he left for work. "There goes one of our finest," they'd say, watching his patrol car pull away from the well-maintained home on Oak Street. At community events, the Ramirez family painted the perfect picture. David, tall and composed in his pressed uniform, would stand proudly beside Maria, whose warm smile masked years of hidden pain. Between them, their daughter Sophia, whose special needs required constant attention, would hold both their hands, creating an image of unity and strength. "Officer Ramirez always went above and beyond," recalls a local shop owner. "He'd stop by daily, check on us elderly folks, make sure everything was secure. Never too busy for a friendly word." His superiors praised his dedication, noting his perfect attendance record and willingness to cover extra shifts. What they didn't know was that those extra shifts often served as an excuse to maintain control over his family's schedule. Maria dedicated herself entirely to Sophia's care. Her days revolved around therapy appointments, educational programs, and the specialized attention her daughter required. Neighbors praised her patience, her unwavering dedication to Sophia's development. "Such a blessing," they'd say, "how she manages everything so smoothly." None saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the trembling in her hands when David's patrol car returned home. Sophia's condition required a strict routine. Every morning began with medication, followed by exercises to help with her mobility. Special educational materials needed constant updating, therapy sessions demanded regular attendance, and medical appointments filled their calendar. Maria coordinated it all, appearing to outsiders as the model of maternal devotion and organizational skill. The family attended church regularly, participated in community fundraisers, and hosted neighborhood gatherings. David would man the grill, sharing stories from his patrol duties, while Maria ensured every guest felt welcomed. Sophia's sweet nature drew people in, her innocent smile touching hearts. The community saw them as an inspiration, a family facing challenges with grace and unity. But perfection requires maintenance. The immaculate house, the well-tended garden, the precisely organized schedule. These weren't just signs of good housekeeping. They were requirements, demands enforced with increasing rigidity. Each detail of their public image needed constant attention, like actors maintaining their marks on stage. At parent-teacher conferences, David's presence commanded respect. Teachers noted how involved both parents seemed in Sophia's education. They praised the family's commitment to their daughter's development, never suspecting that these public appearances masked private tensions. Maria would sit quietly beside him, nodding at appropriate moments, her responses carefully measured. Sometimes, the most important details hide in plain sight, masked by our assumptions about what a perfect family looks like. The Ramirez family's public image reflected what their community wanted to see: dedication, resilience, and unity. But beneath that carefully maintained exterior, pressure was building. The same badge that earned them respect would soon become central to a story that would challenge their community's perceptions of protection and power. As we delve deeper into the events that led to that fateful night, remember that appearances can deceive. The strength required to maintain a perfect facade often comes at a devastating cost. The first signs appeared in moments most would dismiss: a raised eyebrow when Maria spoke to male neighbors, a firm grip on her arm during social gatherings, text messages demanding to know her whereabouts, disguised as concern for Sophia's care schedule. Each incident seemed minor in isolation, but together they formed a pattern of control that grew tighter by the day. David's position in law enforcement gave him unique tools for monitoring Maria's activities. He knew which officers patrolled their neighborhood when they passed by their house, who Maria talked to at the grocery store. "Just keeping my family safe," he'd say. But his definition of safety meant isolation. Sophia's therapy appointments became battlegrounds of control. David insisted on approving each healthcare provider, demanding detailed reports of every session. He'd question Sophia's therapists extensively, not about her progress, but about Maria's behavior during appointments. His interference led several qualified professionals to distance themselves, limiting Sophia's access to crucial care. Financial control came wrapped in the guise of protection. David managed every account, every credit card, every receipt. "You're too busy with Sophia to worry about money," he'd tell Maria. But when she needed basic supplies for their daughter, she'd have to justify each purchase, provide photographs of receipts, explain every penny spent. Maria's phone became both a lifeline and a chain. David installed tracking apps for emergencies, monitored her calls, reviewed her messages. Friends noticed she stopped responding to group chats. "Sophia keeps me too busy," she'd explain. But the truth was, David scrutinized every conversation, questioning each interaction. The impact on Sophia's care became increasingly apparent. Medical decisions required David's approval, often delayed while he reviewed options. Emergency appointments faced questioning, with David demanding to know why Maria hadn't prevented the need for urgent care. Sophia's progress slowed as her mother's autonomy diminished. At home, David's law enforcement training emerged in unexpected ways. He'd conduct impromptu inspections of the house, pointing out imperfections with clinical precision. Each criticism came with a reminder of his authority. "I deal with the worst of society every day. I know what happens when people get sloppy." Maria's world contracted. Weekly coffee meetings with other mothers dwindled. Church group participation became sporadic. Even trips to the grocery store faced timing restrictions. David's requirements grew more demanding: photos to prove her location, calls to confirm arrivals and departures, explanations for any deviation from expected schedules. The financial control extended beyond daily expenses. Maria discovered David had opened credit cards in her name, monitoring every transaction. He claimed to be protecting their credit score, but the effect was complete financial dependency. Even Sophia's disability benefits went through accounts only David could access. Sophia's emotional well-being suffered as she witnessed these dynamics. Her progress in therapy plateaued. Therapists noted increased anxiety during sessions, especially when discussing home life, but their concerns met practiced responses from David. "She's just going through a phase. We know how to handle it." The isolation bred fear. Maria learned to gauge David's mood by the sound of his patrol car in the driveway, the weight of his footsteps on the porch, the way he hung his gun belt by the door. Each day required careful navigation of his expectations, with Sophia's needs hanging in the balance. Professional colleagues saw only David's dedicated exterior. "He's always talking about his family," they'd say. But those conversations revealed another form of control, crafting a narrative where he appeared as the devoted husband and father, while subtly undermining Maria's competence in caring for Sophia. David's tactical training emerged in his manipulation. He knew exactly when to ease the pressure, when to show public affection, when to present the image of the caring officer and family man. These moments of relief made Maria question her own perceptions, wonder if she was exaggerating the control, the fear, the isolation. But Sophia's needs couldn't be manipulated away. Each delayed decision, each restricted resource, each limited therapy option impacted her development. The facade of the perfect family was cracking, revealing glimpses of a household where protection had become prison. Before we continue with what happened next, consider this. How many survivors remain silent because their abuser wears a badge? How does someone seek help when their abuser knows every officer in town, every shelter location, every support service? Share your thoughts below. Your perspective might help others recognize similar patterns in their own lives or in the lives of those they care about. Summer brought suffocating heat and mounting pressure within the Ramirez home. David's behavior shifted from controlling to explosive. Small incidents, a misplaced document, a delayed meal, a call from Sophia's school, triggered outbursts that left Maria calculating escape routes from every room. The badge that once symbolized protection now represented a barrier to safety. Maria discovered this harsh reality when she quietly approached a domestic violence hotline. "Your husband is Officer Ramirez?" The hesitation in the counselor's voice spoke volumes. Local resources seemed to evaporate once David's name entered the conversation. Sophia began showing signs of regression. Her progress in therapy reversed. Night terrors returned. Her once beloved therapy sessions became sources of anxiety. During these episodes, she would clutch her mother's hand, her eyes darting to the door whenever footsteps approached. "One wrong move," David would remind Maria during their whispered confrontations, "and you'll never see her again. Who do you think they'll believe, a respected officer or a hysterical mother?" Each patrol shift now ended with an interrogation. Where had they gone? Who had they spoken to? Why was there an unexpected charge at the pharmacy? Sophia's medical needs became ammunition in David's arsenal of control. Attempts to document the abuse backfired. Maria's hidden diary disappeared. Photos of bruises vanished from her phone. Even recordings of David's threats evaporated. He knew how to cover his tracks using his law enforcement training to maintain perfect deniability. The breaking point approached when Sophia's occupational therapist noticed concerning changes. Questions about home life met with practiced answers, but the therapist saw through them. She tried connecting Maria with resources, but David's influence reached too far. Each potential lifeline snapped under the weight of his authority. Maria started planning, researching out-of-state relatives, memorizing phone numbers, hiding small amounts of cash. But David's surveillance tightened. He installed cameras for security, tracking their movements throughout the house. His police radio stayed on constantly, a reminder of his connections to every emergency service in the area. Sophia's doctors recommended additional specialists, noting her increasing anxiety and physical symptoms. David blocked each referral, claiming they couldn't afford unnecessary treatments. Meanwhile, his own spending went unquestioned. New tactical gear, weapons training courses, surveillance equipment. The neighbors noticed changes but remained silent. Raised voices carried across manicured lawns. Sophia's crying echoed through thin walls. But who reports a police officer? Who challenges the word of law enforcement? The blue wall of silence extended beyond the police department, casting its shadow over the entire neighborhood. Maria found herself mapping safe spaces within their home, teaching Sophia without words where to hide, how to stay quiet, when to seek help. Every door became an exit strategy, every window an escape route. But David's law enforcement experience meant he recognized these preparations. His countermeasures grew more sophisticated, his control more absolute. The facade began crumbling faster now. David's colleagues noticed his heightened aggression during shifts. Sophia's teachers documented concerning behaviors. Maria's rare public appearances showed signs of strain, but the system designed to protect victims became their prison. Every potential helper connected back to David's influence. The next part of the story demonstrates how quickly a situation can escalate when all options for help seem closed. When protection becomes persecution, when safety becomes a threat, what choices remain? Looking back, the warning signs glowed like hazard lights. A new officer at the precinct noticed David's phone lighting up with tracking notifications during briefings. Another saw him accessing Sophia's medical records through police databases. Each observation sparked concern, but loyalty to the badge kept mouths shut. At Sophia's school, teachers exchanged worried glances. Her drawings changed. Once bright and hopeful, they now featured dark colors, hidden figures, faces without smiles. During parent meetings, they noticed how Maria's voice would drop to a whisper when David shifted in his chair. The school counselor started a file but stopped short of reporting. Who would she report to? David's own department? Sophia's behaviors told their own story. She flinched at loud noises, grew anxious around uniforms, and retreated into silence when her father entered a room. Her therapy sessions revealed patterns: increased self-soothing behaviors, declining eye contact, reluctance to return home. The grocery store clerk saw Maria counting change carefully, checking prices obsessively. The pharmacist noticed prescriptions for Sophia delayed by insurance issues, always when David controlled the finances. The church pastor observed how Maria stopped attending women's group meetings, always with perfectly rehearsed excuses. Fellow officers witnessed David's possessive behavior at department functions. His constant calls to Maria, his rigid control of conversations, his subtle threats wrapped in jokes about knowing every patrol route, every camera location, every dispatch procedure. They recognized the tactics. They'd seen them in domestic cases they handled. But this was different. This was one of their own. Sophia's medical records told a story of interrupted treatments, missed appointments, and unexplained injuries. Each specialist saw a piece of the puzzle, but none had the full picture. Their concerns died in documentation that never reached the right authorities because David monitored every report. The most glaring red flags appeared in Sophia's regression. Her speech, once improving, became hesitant. Her motor skills declined. The confidence built through years of therapy crumbled. Each specialist noted changes but feared overstepping, challenging a police officer's care of his child, carried risks none were willing to take. At the police station, rookies learned quickly, don't mention the Ramirez family's frequent calls to dispatch that were mysteriously canceled. Don't discuss the neighbors' reports that disappeared from the system. Don't ask about Maria's visible bruises at department gatherings. Local domestic violence advocates recognized Maria's attempts to reach out: sequential hang-up calls, anonymous online queries, third-party requests for information. But each time they traced a call back to the Ramirez address, their hands felt tied. David's position meant any official intervention could make the situation worse. Sophia's art therapist kept a private file of concerning images: houses with bars on windows, figures watching from corners, families separated by thick lines. Professional obligation warred with practical fear. Reporting abuse by a police officer required ironclad evidence, and David knew exactly how to avoid leaving any. The community's silence formed a suffocating blanket over the truth. Neighbors who turned up their televisions to mask sounds of arguments. Friends who stopped inviting Maria to events because David's questions afterward became too intense. Fellow officers who looked away when David's control tactics became obvious during shifts. These red flags, viewed individually, might seem manageable, but together they painted a picture of escalating danger that everyone saw but no one felt empowered to address. The very systems designed to protect victims became weapons in the hands of someone who knew how to manipulate them. As we continue this story, remember, silence protects abusers. Speaking up even when it feels futile creates a record. It builds a pattern. Sometimes it provides the lifeline a victim needs to break free. Maria found the truth in Sophia's medical file one Tuesday afternoon, hidden between routine test results and therapy notes. She'd been organizing paperwork while David worked an extra shift, a task he usually controlled. The discovery started with a single page, an emergency room report from 3 months ago, documenting injuries inconsistent with Sophia's typical accidents. Her hands trembled as she dug deeper. More reports emerged, each carefully filed under innocent-sounding labels. X-rays showing old fractures, notes from different doctors questioning bruise patterns, observations of behavioral changes during physical examinations. Each document told part of a story Maria had refused to see. In Sophia's therapy journal, buried beneath progress reports, she found drawings that made her heart stop. Black figures looming over smaller ones, scenes of fear captured in crayon and marker. The art therapist's notes detailed Sophia's reactions: physical withdrawal when discussing certain topics, anxiety about returning home. The weight of evidence crushed Maria's remaining doubts. Her mind raced through memories, reframing moments she'd dismissed. Sophia's sudden fear of the bathroom, now connected to hidden bruises from accidents during bath time. Her daughter's panic when David entered her room for nighttime checks. The way Sophia went silent during his father-daughter talks. Maria's discovery continued in Sophia's school backpack. Between homework assignments lay a crumpled note from her teacher expressing concern about Sophia's changing behavior. Multiple emails saved as drafts detailed worrying incidents. Each piece revealed how David had intercepted communications between school and home, controlling the narrative. The evidence forced Maria to confront her worst fears. Her husband, sworn to protect and serve, had manipulated his position to hide systematic abuse. His badge hadn't just silenced her. It had blinded her to the truth about Sophia's suffering. Every canceled therapy appointment, every unexplained bruise, every night of tears now carried new meaning. In Sophia's room, Maria found more clues. Underneath her daughter's mattress lay a collection of tiny objects: Band-Aid wrappers, torn pages from her communication notebook with desperate messages, small toys hidden as comfort objects. Each item told a story of silent suffering, of a child trying to create safety in small ways. The hardest discovery came from Sophia's tablet. In her educational apps between practice sessions and games, Sophia had left recordings, simple messages meant for her mother, too afraid to speak them aloud. "Daddy hurts. Please help. Scared." Each timestamp matched nights when David worked late shifts. Maria's training as a mother had taught her to trust her instincts, but years of manipulation had buried those instincts under layers of doubt and fear. Now, faced with undeniable evidence, she felt those protective instincts roar back to life. The truth demanded action, but action meant confronting the full power of law enforcement. Her mind raced through options. Running meant facing a system where David held influence. Reporting meant challenging the credibility of a decorated officer. Staying meant... She looked at Sophia's latest medical report, her hands shaking. Staying was no longer an option. As she gathered the evidence, a lifetime of warnings echoed in her head. David's voices. "Nobody will believe you. I know how to handle reports. You'll never see her again." But now, each threat strengthened her resolve. The truth in her hands outweighed years of carefully constructed lies. That evening, as she heard David's patrol car pull into the driveway, Maria faced the moment every abuse survivor dreads: the point of no return. She had hidden copies of the records, secured Sophia's most telling drawings, backed up the recordings. The evidence was clear. The choice was made. The shield that had protected David's actions for so long now lay cracked at Maria's feet. But discovering the truth about abuse is only the first step. What comes next would test every ounce of courage she possessed. The confrontation ignited when David found the scattered medical files on their bedroom floor. Maria had left them there purposefully. She needed him to know that she knew. Sophia was safely in her room, headphones on, a precaution Maria had carefully planned. "What have you been doing?" His voice carried that dangerous edge she recognized, the same tone that usually preceded his worst moments, but this time, something was different. Maria stood her ground, Sophia's drawings clutched in her hand. "I know everything." Maria's voice remained steady, each word deliberate. "Every accident, every fall, every rough night. I have proof now, David. It's over." David's transformation happened in seconds. The practiced smile vanished, replaced by raw fury. "You think anyone will believe you? I am the law in this town. One call, and Sophia goes into state care. Is that what you want?" The next moments blurred together. David lunged for the files, but Maria held firm. Papers scattered across the floor, X-rays, incident reports, therapy notes. Each piece of evidence seemed to fuel his rage. "Our daughter," Maria's voice cracked. "How could you hurt our daughter?" The question triggered something in David. He advanced, backing Maria toward their closet. Internal Affairs launched an investigation into how many officers had suspected but remained silent. The community split into factions. Some officers' wives came forward with their own stories of controlled silence. Others defended the thin blue line, arguing that Maria had destroyed not just a family, but faith in local law enforcement. Social media exploded with debates about police accountability and victim protection. The district attorney's office moved carefully, balancing public pressure against legal precedent. Maria's case presented unique challenges. A domestic violence victim who had turned the tables on her abuser, but one who had also killed a police officer. The evidence supporting her self-defense claim grew stronger as more records emerged. Sophia's therapists and doctors stepped forward, their sealed records now free to reveal the full pattern of abuse. Each medical report, each therapy note, each documented accident built a timeline of escalating violence that had remained hidden behind David's badge. As investigators pieced together the final hours of David's life, they uncovered the systematic way he had used his position to maintain control. His body camera footage, department computer records, and patrol patterns revealed a web of surveillance and intimidation that went far beyond normal police work. The case would eventually force departments nationwide to confront domestic violence within their ranks. Maria's story became a catalyst for change, challenging the silence that had protected abusers behind badges for generations. Law enforcement families face unique challenges when confronting domestic violence. The tools meant to protect and serve can become weapons of control. Access to databases, knowledge of victim resources, and connections within the justice system create barriers that trap victims in cycles of abuse. The numbers tell a disturbing story. Studies show that domestic violence rates in police families significantly exceed the general population. Officers' training in control tactics, combined with their intimate knowledge of the system, makes it particularly difficult for family members to seek help or escape abuse. A former police psychologist explains, "The badge creates a perfect shield for abusers in law enforcement. They know exactly how reports are filed, which judges sign warrants, where victims might flee. This knowledge paralyzes many victims from taking action." Key warning signs in law enforcement families often include excessive tracking of family members' movements, using police resources to monitor communications, threatening child custody based on professional connections, isolating family from support networks, controlling all financial transactions, preventing medical professionals from filing reports. The power dynamic becomes even more complex when children have special needs. Abusers can exploit medical care access, therapy appointments, and educational resources as control mechanisms. They understand how to present themselves to mandatory reporters and how to discredit potential witnesses. For those trapped in similar situations, resources exist that understand the unique challenges of police-involved domestic violence. Specialized victim advocates trained in law enforcement cases, out-of-jurisdiction support services, anonymous reporting systems, professional networks that bypass local authorities, documentation strategies that protect evidence. Success stories show that escape is possible. Survivors emphasize the importance of building support networks outside local jurisdiction, maintaining detailed records in secure locations, creating safety plans that account for police knowledge, working with advocates who understand law enforcement culture, protecting children through proper documentation. Children in these situations require special consideration. Signs of abuse may appear in changes in behavior around uniformed officers, regression in therapy progress, unexplained fears of authority figures, sudden changes in medical care patterns, hidden messages in artwork or schoolwork. Legal experts emphasize the importance of documentation. Evidence must be stored securely outside the home, dated and detailed, shared with trusted professionals, protected from department access, maintained consistently over time. Change within law enforcement culture starts with recognition. Progressive departments now implement anonymous reporting systems for officers' families, independent oversight of domestic complaints, mandatory counseling programs, partner support networks, training on identifying colleague abuse. The path forward requires acknowledging that wearing a badge doesn't prevent someone from being an abuser. It demands systemic changes in how departments handle domestic violence within their ranks. Today, Maria advocates for changes in how law enforcement handles domestic violence within their ranks. Sophia continues her recovery, supported by specialists who understand the unique trauma she endured. Their story has opened doors for other families trapped behind badges of authority. The Ramirez case sparked policy changes across multiple police departments. New protocols require external review of domestic complaints involving officers. Anonymous reporting systems protect family members seeking help. Training programs now address the warning signs of abuse among fellow officers. Let's be clear, this story isn't just about one family. It's about recognizing how power can become a weapon, how systems can fail those they're meant to protect, and how silence enables abuse to continue. If you're watching this and recognize these patterns in your own life or someone else's, know that help exists. Your story matters. Your safety matters. Your children's safety matters. Take action now. Share this video responsibly. Save these resources in a secure location. Reach out to verified support services. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Before we end, remember this. Breaking silence saves lives. Your engagement with this content helps others find the courage to speak up, seek help, and break free from abuse. If this video has impacted you, like and share to increase visibility, save to watch later as needed, comment with support, not judgment, enable notifications for future resources. For those still living this reality, you're not alone. The same systems that seem to trap you can be navigated with the right support. Every share of this video builds a stronger network of awareness and help. Together, we can challenge the silence protecting abusers, support survivors seeking justice, protect vulnerable family members, create safer communities for everyone. This isn't just a video, it's a lifeline. Share it. Someone in your circle might need this information today. Remember, abuse thrives in silence. Your voice matters. Your action matters. Your share could save a life. The story of Maria and Sophia reminds us that courage comes in many forms. Sometimes the bravest act is speaking truth to power, even when that power wears a badge. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay aware, and never stop speaking up for those who can't speak for themselves.